Thank you all for coming. Educators like Tagore or Krishnamurti or Vygotsky have always told us that we don't learn from experience, we learn by reflecting on experience. And I think it might be useful to reflect on skill development apprenticeships since 1947, right? We only have 7 lakh apprentices. If we had 2.7% of our labor force, which is what Germany has, we would have 1.5 crore apprentices. And I think there are a few reasons for that, right? It was this hard partition between education and employability. This wasn't always there. In 1938, Gandhiji had given a wonderful speech in Wardha which talked about Nai Talim, which was really a case for apprenticeships and experiential learning. But that didn't find any place in the 1948 Radhakrishnan report, nor in the 1968 Kothari Committee report, nor in the 1986 New Education Policy on Education. I think there's another reason, which is supposedly the financing failure. Right? Employers are not willing to pay for training or candidates, they're willing to pay a premium for trained candidates. Candidates are not willing to pay for training, they're willing to pay for a job. Banks or microfinance aren't willing to lend to the candidate unless a job is guaranteed, and training companies are unable to fill up their classrooms. So essentially everybody's trying to topi pen out the other person, right? Kids want parents to pay, parents want government to pay, government wants employer to pay. And there has been a lot of innovation in curriculum and in delivery. But I think the next wave of innovation will have to happen in financing. Who pays? And I think this is not a uniquely Indian problem, right? $1.5 trillion of student debt in the US, 50% will probably have to be written off. So I'm not sure that that's a model that we want to copy. But we have an interesting example in India, right, this year. 5 million people will export more software than Saudi Arabia will oil. This is the first time we will do that. So this year, India will export more software than Saudi Arabia. But that's only 5 million out of our 550 million labor force. So 0.8% of India's labor force generates 8% of GDP, right? It's an oasis of high productivity. Obviously, the IITs and IIMs had an important part of it, but an early part of it was really vocational training outside the university system. The BCA-MCA system jumped onto the bandwagon in the early 90s or late 90s, but it really came from a non-degree system. So if we were to step back and say that what are the 5 design principles that we have learned about the perpetual motion machine which physics never found, right? That's what skill development should be. You should be able to pay skilled kids, they should get a wage premium, that wage premium should be able to pay for skills. And at least I think about now what I have learned in the last, we've hired somebody every 5 minutes for the last 20 years, but we have only hired 5% of the children who came to us for a job. Those kids didn't have a birth defect. It's just that the 2 most important decisions a child in India makes are to choose your parents and your PIN code wisely. All of us are sitting in this room because we did. But the 5 design principles which could, in my mind, create the infrastructure of opportunity would be learning while learning, learning by doing, learning with modularity, learning with flexibility, and learning with signaling value. And I'll quickly just run. Learning when earning is really, really important for a country like India. All of us who had opening balances don't recognize how hard it is to escape those opening balances. So you can't take jobs to people, you have to take people to jobs. But if you can take learning to people rather than people to learning, you not only lower the cost of learning, but you make learning affordable. So it's really important to solve the financing failure for kids whose parents. Education, employment, and employability, an oasis of high productivity. But I think if you think about apprenticeships, if you think about finally an ROI where you're not appealing to the kind heart and the generosity of employers, we are appealing to them to sort of fix their people's supply chains or reimagine their supply chains so that they have higher productivity, they can have lower attrition, they can have faster time to hire. So I think many things are coming together. If NEP really gets implemented in its full spirit, if we narrow the distance between the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Skills, I think Indian employers are sort of ready to take this 7 lakh number to 10 million in my mind. Thank you.